take me to walk as short as I am. Give me that, the body, even if I walk home naked, I don't not mind, because that woman's body is, if you can give me that. He was so angry with me that he walked away. I'm like, but are we not here to perform miracles? Because if that's the case, can we make sure that if you want to perform a miracle or sell somebody a dream, make it something attainable. Don't just come to me with fairy tale dreams and think I'm going to buy it, because it doesn't work, right? Anyways, and I thought, that phase of my life was over. And, God has a very funny sense of humor, so I was like, funny, okay, let me go do what I was doing. Recently, at Pick and Pay with my younger sister, buying groceries, and it always happened at the most random places. This guy, when you watch a movie, and guy meets girl, he stalks her, and it's kind of creepy, but they make it romantic, and he stalks her, they fall in love, have 50 kids, live happily ever after. And I was busy there minding my own business out and I see this guy. He's busy following me. I'm like, yo, okay, so things in movies could be real. It's creepy that he's stalking me in the freaking Pick and Pay. But, and even my youngest sister's like, Maureen, did you see that guy's stalking at you? He's kind of cute. So I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Trying to play cool. And he comes up to me and says, hi, I can't even remember what his name is. I think it flew my mind as soon as he said what he said. And he's like, yeah, my name is so-and-so, but you're not told him my name. And he's like, so have you heard of Pastor so-and-so from Dubai? I was like, okay, no. He's like, he's a powerful man of God. Instantly, I was like, beauty with no brains. This is what they need. It's exactly what they need. And after that, it goes on, and my younger sister is standing in front of me. She's giving me this look that's like, don't say anything embarrassing. Don't even think of embarrassing me, because I'm going to leave you. I was like, okay. And he goes on. He phones his pastor. And they start praying for me in the Pick and Pay. And I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting there like this, listening to this long prayer. And after that, the pastor says, so my sister, how are you feeling now? I was like, I was never feeling anything, Pastor. I was hands a bit long, so maybe we can, postpone for another time. He keeps quiet, and my sister's like, giving me this staunch look, like, don't. So we get to the car, and she says, well, at least you didn't think about standing and walking after you said amen. I'm like, I actually thought about it, that I could actually just quickly stand and be like, praise God, it's worked. I can stand. Thank God. But she's like, thank God you didn't do that, because I know you already. You probably would have stood up and took a couple of steps. And I'm like, but that's the problem. People look at a person with a disability and they think, they're not happy with the way they look. They're not happy with who they are. They're not happy with life in general. But then when you actually respond in a manner that says, I'm actually happy, they get shocked. They don't expect you to be educated. They don't expect you to have a good job. They don't expect you to be well-spoken. or outspoken even. Especially with I've had incidents where people are like, but I'm worried, how can you be so vocal? I'm like, how can you not be? Because you cannot sit there and be ill-treated, but expect people to treat you well. I'm not going to do that. I'm not made for hard labor or ill treatment. So I'm going to speak up and say something about it. If something is unfair, it's unfair. If I'm made to feel bad for my disability, I'm going to say something about it. And at the end of the day, I always say that the process of acceptance and love starts with you. It doesn't start with anybody else. It doesn't start with society or
All right, no, that's quite all right. So my first question is, as soon as someone says I need to pray for you, my mindset changes completely. Because now I understand the reason you only say that is because I don't have hands. So I said, sir, how did you get here? Right? I mean, look, no disrespect. He says, young man, I walked, God has blessed me to be able to climb on a taxi and get up. Sorry, what? You came here with a taxi? He says, yes. I'm like, so you want to tell me what now? He says, I want to pray for a miracle. I'm like, so number one, you need to understand what a miracle is, right? You want to pray for me for a miracle. I think you need to pray for wisdom so that you can recognize when you are around a miracle. Because I am one. Yes. I think, but these are the words I had to tell him. I'm sorry, maybe I came across as rude, but I had to tell him, right? And he says, no, my son, we should pray. And so I said, come here. Just a little bit closer. I don't want to make a noise. I said, full tech. So sure. No, this was the incredible, but he could not believe that someone like me would say that, right? He said, yo, you're so rude. You don't have heads. I'm like, what's that? Yeah, you have a disability. I'm like, sir, the only person who has a disability is your mother for giving birth to you. And he could not believe that I could respond like that. So what I was trying to show him is that you have disrespected me by coming into my space and thinking that I need a miracle. For crying out loud, sir, you need a miracle for you to make money so you can have a car and stop walking around to the taxi rank. Mr. Benny, please come up before I check this crowd. I'm toxic like that. Please give me a round of applause.
Do we realize that within this month, it becomes important for society to start approaching persons with disabilities directly. In fact, the argument still remains that it is actually the society and the barriers that disable a person. That's why disability would never be defined. It's by self-definition. The policy direction of this government is that the government follows the social model approach, which talks to human rights and development approach. And government is also bound by the international instruments, such as the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the African Union Protocol. It is therefore important that we begin to realize that the legal principles are important in this case. Policy is important, yes, but the important thing is to protect the rights of the rights holders themselves and to ensure that duty bearers fulfill their responsibilities. In this case, we might look at principles such as non-discrimination, individual autonomy, and that must include freedom to make one's own choices without being told what to do, and they must be independent of other people in terms of that. They must have full and effective participation in society, and the inclusive development approach must be taken in order to make sure that persons with disabilities are part of the society. There has to be the respect for differences between persons with disabilities and others without actually discriminating against persons with disabilities and recognizing the diversity and their humanity thereof. The important thing here also is to realize the equality of opportunity and to ensure that those opportunities provide accessibility at all levels. We need to recognize the equality between men and women and also the recognition of girl children and boy children and teach them and socialize them that they are part of the society like anybody else. We must also respect the evolving capacity of children with disabilities as said, and also we must respect their rights as children to reserve their own identity as children with disabilities themselves. Now, the important thing I want to also talk about here is the question of progressive realization of rights. Yes, indeed, it is important that we look at progressive realization of rights. But rights can be relative and rights can be absolute. Rights can be horizontal and rights can also be vertical. Therefore, it becomes important for us to look at the human rights approach from a perspective of realization of these rights, looking at access, looking at the numbers, looking at diversity, looking at compounded aspects, and also looking at a better quality of life and social participation of persons with disabilities in our society. Now, the state has an obligation to ensure that appropriate laws are set and are put into place. Therefore, it means that the state must look after the fundamental rights and freedoms of persons with disabilities without any type of discrimination, without any kind of discrimination on the basis of disability. Therefore, the state has to adopt all appropriate measures, especially legislative, administrative, and governance measures, modifying existing laws, abolishing those laws or repealing those laws that and regulations and schedules and customs and practices that are harmful to persons with disabilities or even discriminate against them. It is important to take into account the protection of persons with disabilities from a human rights perspective, as I've said. However, this must be done in all policies, projects, programs, plans, budgeting, and also designs. We must all refrain from engaging in acts and practices that are inconsistent with the constitution of this country. Because this will actually make sure that public authorities also cooperate with persons with disabilities as it is legislated in the Constitution. The important thing that I also want to say is that it's under obligation that the state must meet all the requirements of international protocols. If I could also say that the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities have published two frameworks, the Universal Design and Access Framework and the Reasonable Accommodation Framework. In the next year, the department will publish the Awareness Raising Framework and also the Self-Representation Framework. These frameworks have gone through the cabinet. In the next year, South Africa will also ratify the protocol, the AU protocol on the African Charter for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. This ratification is currently before Parliament, and it will be voted in the next sitting of Parliament in February 2022. It is also important to realize that the state is now developing an act, and I am sitting in the National Advisory Council of the Minister of Justice, where I advise, provide legal advice in terms of how this law must be crafted. We intend to finish this act by the end of 2023. And this act will bind everyone and will criminalize certain matters that will have penalties and offenses. At this point, we have done an issue paper, and I would like to thank Mayor Lydia Pretorius and the rest of the team that have provided us with comments on the issue paper on the act. We are currently finishing the discussion paper, and we will be proceeding with the socio-economic impact assessment of the issue paper, of the discussion paper itself. It will be published, and we would like you to really contribute much to this discussion paper. Once we finish that process, we'll go to the socio-economic impact assessment, we'll go through the legislative audit to see which legislation basically does not cover a disability. Now, there are three options that we are looking at. The first option is that we amend all the existing laws and create regulations and schedules that will encompass issues of persons with disabilities. The second option is that we look at an omnibus act, which means it's an act that covers every other aspect of the law, that covers any other aspect that relates to persons with disabilities. The third option is that we convert the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities through domestication process with all its articles into a standing or standalone overarching act that will be realized as an act that binds everyone towards accountability. Therefore, it is important for government to start promoting research and development when it comes to this law, to start to promote the availability and use of new laws that exist already, to start amending those existing laws and regulations, and to start developing, for instance, the Department of Social Development to develop an act that looks at services for persons with disabilities, because services cannot be measured at this point. The other important aspect I want to highlight is the availability of statistics of persons with disabilities in this country. They are not accurate. And in the next census, we will ensure that we come as close to accuracy as possible. With your assistance, we would like you as the foundation to be part of the census aspects, to find people with persons with disabilities in the streets, in their homes, and everywhere else. I want to also refer to the issue that COVID-19 has affected persons with disabilities in a major way. What has happened is that on the 11th of April 2020, we published a regulation which talks to combating the spread and preventing infection, protecting and ensuring the safety of persons with disabilities with regard to COVID-19. We have also put into place a cross-cutting approach towards all the work streams of the National Command Council, where I am sitting with the President, to ensure that all the work streams take into consideration issues of persons with disabilities when it comes to COVID-19 aspects. Government will continue and is also committed towards ensuring that persons with disabilities are appropriately protected, are in safe environments, and where applicable, services are taken to their places of residence to ensure that they are able to get all the services that they need to prevent them from being affected by COVID-19. In conclusion, Chairperson, I would like to present a quotation that you must always remember. Some people cannot walk, but they are movers and shakers of society. Some people cannot talk, but they listen and understand and speak clearly. Some people cannot hear, but they listen carefully. Some people have no sight, but they have a vision for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all so much, Mr. Bailey. Thank you. Really, really appreciate it. Can you please give him a round of applause once more? Colleagues, I think you can even see my image is done. I need fuel. I think now, Rev, there you go. I think, as you kindly said, we will now be breaking for lunch. I think that has become my favorite word for the day. We'll be breaking for lunch, and then we will commence. How many minutes? How many minutes do we have? 30 minutes. 30 minutes. All right. So if you can eat quicker, that would be great. Start early, you know. But 30 minutes, please, and so we can get back to the business at hand. Thank you so much, ladies and gents. Let's continue to the foyer where we will get our lunch. Yes, DJ, it's okay. Go on, I was done. All right, you can go.